Good evening, I'm Prasad Michael and you're watching Kini News. If you're an MP, it's your job to make sure your constituents are taken care of, especially those in need. Would you vote against a bill that would help the most vulnerable members of our society just for political points? The Supply Bill 2020 for the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry was only narrowly passed after opposition lawmakers called for a bloc vote twice. The bill includes aid for people with disabilities, senior citizens and children. So who would vote against such a bill? At a press conference today, Deputy Women, Family and Community Development Minister Yeoh singled out 28 BN and PAS MPs for trying to defeat her ministry's budget.
Yang tidak bersetuju rantau panjang, Dungun, Sik, Padang Terap, Ketere, Kepala Batas, Machang, Jasin, Kota Tinggi, Parit, Jempol, Kuala Kangsar, Bera, Air Hitam, Tapah, Tanjung Karang, Parit Sulong, Lenggong, Kuala Kerau, Pontian, Lipis, Baling, Gerik, Jerantut, Jelebu, Tenggara, Paya Besar, Cameron Highlands.
Yeoh said if the ministry's budget was defeated, it will also affect the welfare allocation for MPs who had voted against it. She said it was regretful that opposition MPs would disagree with aid for the poor, disabled and elderly. 20 million ringgit could get a lot done, but if I told you 20 million ringgit of public funds was invested into a private company behind the flying car, how would you feel? A sum of 20 million ringgit in public funds was invested into Aerodyne Ventures Sendirian Berhad, the private firm behind the flying car project. But how was the money used? This is what Parliament's Public Accounts Committee is hoping to find out with an audit. Entrepreneur Development Minister Mohammad Redwan Yusof previously told Parliament that no tax money would be involved in building the prototype of the flying car. In its report on the flying car project published today, the PAC found that 20 million ringgit had been channeled to Aerodyne through Venture Tech Sendirian Berhad. Venture Tech is a subsidiary of the Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE, an entity under the Prime Minister's Department. The PAC recommended that Venture Tech closely monitors that Aerodyne use the funds for its original purposes. Funding was one of the many concerns the PAC had about the project. It noted that Redwan's public announcement about the flying car project back in January was done without any prior presentations to the cabinet. No detailed planning or due diligence on Aerodyne's financial and technical capabilities was done before the project was publicly promoted, it also said. There's no sign that the infighting in Pika will stop anytime soon, especially after the sacking of two party youth leaders. PKR youth leaders Mizan Adli Muhammad Noor and Muhammad Ramli Ahmad have cautioned that the party could face deregistration. They said this after they were stripped of their positions as the wing's permanent chairperson and deputy permanent chairperson as factional infighting continues. As such, the duo urged the central leadership to thoroughly investigate their removal. In a joint statement, they said they do not wish to see PKR declared illegal. Yesterday, PKR Youth Secretary Ahmad Shukri Razab informed the duo in letters to them that they would be stripped of their positions due to doubts in the election. According to letters cited by Malaysia Kini, manual counting showed that the duo had received more votes than the number of delegates present. The issue of their age qualification was also raised. Mizan Adli and Muhammad Ramli have disputed the reasoning for their removal. The police should be supported and not oppressed. This is why the opposition will be rejecting the IPCMC bill. The opposition will reject the Independent Police Complaints and Misconduct Commission IPCMC bill, which is scheduled to be tabled in Parliament next week. According to opposition leader Ismail Sabri Yaakob, this is because the police need to be supported, not oppressed by law.
Sebelum perkara lain dilakukan, kebajikan polis mesti diutamakan. Dan kita berpandangan bahawa 150,000 anggota polis yang bertugas mempertaruhkan masa dan nyawa mereka untuk mempertahankan kita semua, keselamatan kita semua. Tetapi akhirnya balasan daripada pihak kerajaan adalah memberikan tekanan kepada mereka.
BN PAS as well as GPS said they do not agree with the government's wish to form the IPCMC. The IPCMC was first mooted by a royal commission to deal with misconduct such as police brutality, custodial deaths, shootings and cover-ups of the police in its report published in May 2005. On May 10 this year, the police finally gave their consent to form the IPCMC, 14 years after it was first proposed. You know who our current Prime Minister is, and in fact, we also know who Harapan wants to be chosen as the next Prime Minister. But ever wondered who BN and PAS would choose if they formed the federal government? Will Najib Abdul Razak be Prime Minister again? Or what about Prime Minister Abdul Hadi Awang? The UMNO PAS Muafakat National Pact will eventually need to select a candidate for the Prime Minister's post as they rally strength to face the next general election. This is according to UMNO Vice President Khalid Nordin. However, the former Johor Menteri Besar said time has not arrived to discuss who would be named as Muafakat National's Prime Minister. During a special interview in conjunction with next month's UMNO General Assembly, Khalid did not dismiss the calls made by some who had suggested the return of former Prime Minister Najib to the post. According to Khalid, the cooperation between UMNO and PAS under Muafakat National is still a concept and yet to be a formal political entity on its own. Both parties are also still learning to work with each other and looking forward to improving their relationship after decades of being on opposite sides of the political divide. According to him, Muafakat National is a manifestation of the concerns of the Malays over the Harapan government's policies. UMNO and PAS, he said, are giving solutions to grassroots Malays in facing the issues in the country. The scattering of Ching Peng's ashes in Malaysia has angered many. But what's all the fuss about? This is the question raised by a former IGP. Former Police Chief Abdul Rahim Noor said the return of Ching Peng's ashes to Malaysia should not be an issue because the Communist Party of Malaya is no longer a threat. He told Malaysia Kini that CPM's struggle had been over since the party signed the Hatniai Peace Accord with the government in December 1989, ending its 21 years of armed struggle. He said the peace agreement itself showed that the country wanted to let bygones be bygones and move forward after peace was achieved. Chin Peng, whose real name is Ong Bun Hua, was the Secretary General of CPM until it laid down its arms in 1989. He died in Thailand in 2013. Rahim, who was directly involved in the peace accord then as the Chief of Police Special Branch, said the terms of the peace treaty also allowed all CPM leaders to return to Malaysia, including Chin Peng. However, he said it was the decision of Chin Peng and several other senior CPM leaders not to return. He added that according to the agreement, one of its terms provided for all CPM members to return home with the condition that they cannot revive their struggle. Coming up next, Beijing isn't happy with the US. Albania deals with the aftermath of the worst earthquake in decades. Vietnamese families mourn as they receive the first bodies found in a British truck. That and more after this. US President Donald Trump signed into law a congressional legislation backing protesters in Hong Kong, and Beijing isn't happy. China has warned the United States that it would take firm countermeasures in response to US legislation backing anti-government protesters in Hong Kong. US President Donald Trump signed the congressional legislation into law on Wednesday. The legislation requires the State Department to certify at least annually that Hong Kong retains enough autonomy to justify favorable US trading terms that have helped the territory grow as a world financial center. It also threatens sanctions for human rights violations. Beijing said attempts to interfere in the Chinese-ruled city were doomed to fail. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Beijing-backed government said the legislation sent the wrong signal to demonstrators and clearly interfered with the city's internal affairs. Demonstrators in Hong Kong are angry at what they see as Chinese meddling in the freedoms promised to the former British colony when it returned to Chinese rule in 1997. More than 5,800 people have been arrested since June. The death toll from Albania's worst earthquake in decades has increased, but rescue efforts are still ongoing to save those trapped under the rubble. Italian rescue teams worked around the clock on Wednesday to save 6 family members, including 2 toddlers, trapped under rubble when their house collapsed after Albania's worst earthquake in decades.
We don't know what we will do after this. What happened earlier we know, but what will happen to our home? Will it be demolished? We don't know. We don't know what tomorrow will bring.
The death toll from Tuesday's quake rose to 30 as rescue workers dug through the remains of the 4-story house at the Adriatic port city of Durrës. In addition to the 30 dead across the country, the Defense Ministry said 650 people have been injured and 20 were missing. If the death toll continues to rise, the earthquake could be more deadly than the one in 1979 when 40 people were killed. Temperatures in Albania were expected to remain well above 10 degrees Celsius in the coming days, but rain forecasts for Thursday could hamper the rescue efforts. Albania was shaken by at least 250 aftershocks, 3 of them magnitude 5, from Tuesday to Wednesday. Hundreds of people spent the night sleeping in tents pitched by the emergency services. The government declared Wednesday a day of mourning, and Prime Minister Edi Rama said the authorities would rehouse people who had lost their homes in hotels during the winter. Albania is the poorest country in Europe. After a grisly discovery last month on an industrial estate near London, families in Vietnam can finally find closure. With tears in their eyes and white roses in their hands, friends and relatives of the 39 Vietnamese people who were found dead in the back of a British truck last month sobbed as the first bodies to be repatriated arrived in rural Vietnam on Wednesday.
We're not worried anymore. Before, while we were waiting, we were afraid that he couldn't come home. But now he's here, and that has fulfilled our family's wish. Now the priest will hold a ceremony to rest his soul.
The bodies of the 16 victims arrived in the Southeast Asian country in the early hours of Wednesday morning, Vietnam's foreign ministry said in a statement. The families would have to pay for the repatriation of the bodies, costing almost $3,000 each. According to a foreign ministry statement, the Vietnamese government would advance the payment, which families could repay later. Vietnamese and British authorities continue to coordinate to repatriate the remaining bodies, it added, without giving further details. Police in Vietnam have arrested 10 people in connection with the deaths. On Monday, the British driver of the truck admitted plotting to assist unlawful immigration and acquiring criminal property. And here are several other news highlights from today. And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching. But before we go, we leave you with the discovery of an endangered pygmy cormorant in China's Xinjiang region.